in the heart of Mexico City, inside a basilica that draws millions of pilgrims. Every single year, there hangs a piece of fabric that simply should not exist. It is a coarse cloth woven from the fibers of the agave cactus. It is rough, simple, and fragile. By every law of chemistry and physics, this cloak should have turned to dust over 400 years ago. In the humid, salty air of the region, cactus fiber rots within 20 years. Yet, this cloak has survived for 5 centuries. It has survived floods that turned the capital into a lake. It has survived an accidental acid spill that should have burned it apart, leaving nothing but a faint stain as a scar. It even survived a dynamite attack in 1921, when a bomb hidden in a bouquet of flowers exploded at the altar. The blast was so powerful it twisted a heavy iron crucifix into a pretzel and shattered windows in homes down the street. Yet, the thin glass protecting the cloth remained perfectly intact. But the durability of the canvas is nothing compared to the image resting upon it. It is an image that NASA scientists, Nobel laureates, and art experts have studied for decades only to walk away, scratching their heads. There are no brushstrokes. There is no undersketch. When laser scanners are passed over the surface, the coloration seems to float microns above the fabric, not touching it, as if projected by a light that never went out. And most haunting of all are the eyes. When magnified 2,000 times, the eyes of the image reflect a room, a bearded man, and a scene from a specific moment in history frozen in time. This is not a painting. It is a photograph of the impossible. This is the story of the Virgin of Guadalupe. And to understand the mystery of the cloak, we must first understand the nightmare of the world in which it appeared. The year is 1531, and the Valley of Mexico is a place of profound silence and ash. To understand the miracle that was about to happen, you have to understand the absolute nightmare that preceded it. Just 10 years earlier, the great Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan, a city of floating gardens, soaring pyramids, and complex astronomers, had been smashed to rubble. The Spanish conquistadors had arrived with steel armor, gunpowder, and a weapon far deadlier than any sword, smallpox. The war was brutal, absolute, and total. For the indigenous people, the fall of their empire wasn't just a military defeat, it was a cosmic apocalypse. In their theology, if the sacrifices stopped, the sun would cease to rise. And now their temples were destroyed, their idols were smashed, and their priests were gone. To them, the gods had died, the sun had gone dark, and the universe was collapsing. The Spanish missionaries were trying to convert the survivors to a new faith, but progress was slow and painful. There was deep resentment, paralyzing fear, and a sense of total hopelessness. The indigenous people were now treated as ghosts in their own land. Their culture, eras, their voices silenced and their spirits broken. In the middle of this shattered world lived a man named Coeur Latorne. He was 57 years old, an old man, by the standards of the time, living in the twilight of his life. He was a widow-rower, a humble mat weaver, and a subsistence father. He had recently converted to Catholicism, taking the name Juan Diego. Juan Diego was what the Aztecs called Amcul, a commoner. He had no power, he had no wealth. In the rigid, violent hierarchy of the new Spanish colony, he was invisible. He was a man who walked with his eyes on the ground, trying to survive in a world that no longer made sense. But on a cold Saturday morning, December 9th, 1531, the invisible man was about to be seen. It is just before dawn. The air is crisp and biting, the kind of cold that seeps through the thin cactus fiber clothes of a poor farmer. Juan Diego is walking quickly, his breath misting in the twilight, hurrying from his home in Tepeyac to Titloco for Mass. His path takes him past a hill known as Tepeyac. In ancient times, this hill had been a place of worship for the Aztec earth goddess Tonin, but now it is just a rocky barren slope covered in scraggly moss-white bushes and sharp thorns. Suddenly he stops. The silence of the dawn is shattered not by the wind, and not by an animal, but by music. It sounds like the chirping of 1,000 rare birds, the T's in its scan harmonizing together in a melody so sweet, so piercingly beautiful that Juan Diego wonders if he has died. He looks around trembling, asking himself, "Am I worthy of what I hear? Have I stumbled into the land of flowers, the paradise of our ancestors?" He looks up toward the summit of the hill, the source of the song. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the singing stops. The silence that follows is heavy, charged with electricity. And then a voice calls out to him from the top of the hill, "Juanito Juanduito." It is the diminutive form of his name. In the Nuetal language, this is not just a nickname. It is a sign of immense affection, intimacy, and respect. It is how a mother speaks to her most beloved child. Juan Diego feels no fear. Instead, he feels a strange, overwhelming joy bubbling up in his chest. He climbs the hill. When he reaches the top, the sun has not yet fully risen, but the summit is bathed in a light brighter than noon. Standing there is a young woman. She is not Spanish. She is Mexican with dark skin and dark hair. Her clothes are glowing with a celestial radiance. The light pouring from her is so intense that it transforms the jagged rocks and dry cactus around her into shimmering emeralds and polished gold. The thorns look like turquoise, the pebbles like precious jewels. She speaks to him in Nahuatl, his native tongue, soft and courteous. "Know and understand well, the most humble of my sons, that I am the ever-Virgin Holy Mary, Mother of thee, true God." She does not ask for a sacrifice. She does not demand blood. She asks for a house. "I desire a church to be built here, so that I may show and give all my love, my compassion, my help, and my protection, because I am your merciful mother to you and to all the inhabitants of this land." She gives Juan Diego a specific mission. He must go to the palace of the bishop in Mexico City, tell him exactly what he has seen, and ask that a temple be built on this plain. Juan Diego bows low. He promises to fulfill her will immediately. He runs down the hill, energized by the encounter, feeling like the most important man in the world. He is the messenger of the Queen of Heaven. He thinks the hard part is over. He is wrong. The hard part is just beginning. Juan Diego descends from the radiant heights of Tepeyac into the noise and dust of Mexico City. The transition is jarring. He leaves a world of celestial song and enters a fortress of stone and steel. The streets are bustling with Spanish soldiers in armor, merchants shouting over their wares, and friars hurrying between churches. He weaves through the crowd, a small figure in a rough cloak, clutching the memory of the lady's face like a secret treasure. He makes his way to the episcopal palace, the seat of power for the entire region. This is the home of Juan de Zumemoraga, the first bishop of Mexico. Zumemoraga is a good man, a Franciscan friar known for his piety, but he is also a pragmatist. He is an administrator trying to bring order to a chaotic new colony, dealing with rebellions, political infighting, and the overwhelming task of building a church from the ashes of an empire. He is a man of logic, law, and theology. When Juan Diego arrives at the gates, the guards and servants look at him with disdain. They see only a poor Indian in a dirty tilma, just another beggar looking for a handout. They leave him standing in the courtyard for hours, ignoring his pleas, but Juan Diego does not leave. He stands like a statue, waiting with the infinite patience of his people. Finally, seeing that the old man will not go away, the servants admit him. He enters the bishop's study, a room filled with books and maps, smelling of ink and old paper. Juan Diego falls to his knees. With tears in his eyes and his voice trembling with emotion, he recounts the impossible story. He tells the bishop about the birds, the golden light, the lady who spoke in Nahu, and her specific request for a church on the plain. The bishop listens intently. He watches the old man's face, looking for signs of madness or deception, but he does not believe. Why would the Mother of God appear to a peasant? Why not to a priest or a theologian or a governor? And why would she ask for a shrine on a hill that was formerly dedicated to a pagan goddess? To the bishop's rational mind, this sounds like a hallucination brought on by the trauma of the conquest, or perhaps a demon trying to trick the faithful. Zumarraga speaks kindly, but his words are a wall of ice. You must calm. Again, my son. When I have more time, I will listen to you then, and I will consider what you have said. It is a polite dismissal, but a dismissal nonetheless. Juan Diego leaves the palace, his heart completely crushed. The joy he felt on the hill has evaporated, replaced by a deep, aching sense of failure. He walks the long road back to Tepeyac. As the sun begins to set, his head hung low. He feels he has failed the Mother of God. When he reaches the top of the hill, the lady is waiting for him in the same spot. He throws himself to the ground before her. My lady, my queen, he cries out, his voice breaking. I am a nobody. I am a small rope. I am a ladder board. I am a tail, a dry leaf. You have sent me to a place where I do not belong. Please, I beg you, send someone else. Send a nobleman. Send someone respected, someone with power and influence. If they speak, the bishop will listen. But if I speak, I am ignored. I am nothing. It is a heartbreaking moment of total vulnerability. Juan Diego is begging to be released from a mission he feels too small to carry. He believes that his poverty and his low status make him unworthy to be her messenger. But the Virgin smiles. She looks at this man who calls himself a dead leaf and tells him that in the eyes of heaven, he is essential. Listen. My little son, she says with gentle firmness, I have many servants, many messengers whom I could send. I have angels and kings at my command, but it is necessary that you go. It is through your mediation that my wish must be accomplished. She does not accept his resignation. She doubles down. She orders him to return to the bishop the very next morning and to speak with absolute authority. He is to say that he comes in the name of the Virgin Mary, the Mother of God, and that her wish is absolute. Juan Diego looks at her, and his courage returns. He promises to try again. He will go back into the lion's den. Sunday, December 10th. Juan Diego returns to the city, his jaw set with determination. He pushes through the crowds and demands to see the prelate once more. This time, the atmosphere in the bishop's palace is different. The curiosity has turned to suspicion. The bishop interrogates the humble farmer, asking him minute details about the lady's appearance, her voice, and the exact time of the encounters. Juan Diego answers every question with perfect consistency, but it is not enough. Bishop Zumarraga leans forward, his patience wearing thin. My son, he says, words are easy to speak but hard to believe. If this lady is truly the Queen of Heaven, I need more than your testimony. I need a sign. Ask her for a sign that proves she is who she says she is. Juan Diego agrees without hesitation. He leaves the palace, confident. But as he exits, the bishop signals to a group of trusted servants. He orders them to follow the Indian, to watch where he goes and who he speaks to. He suspects Juan Diego is meeting with a conspirator, or perhaps performing pagan rituals in the desert. The spies follow him out of the city gates. Keeping their distance, they track him along the dusty causeway. But as they approach the wooden bridge near Tepeyac, something inexplicable happens. Juan Diego steps into a ravine and simply vanishes. The spies scour the area. They search behind rocks and bushes, but he is gone, frustrated and superstitious. They return to the bishop, claiming that the Indian is a sorcerer who uses dark magic to make himself invisible. They advise the bishop to have him whipped if he ever dares to return. But on Monday, December 11th, Juan Diego does not return. He does not go to the hill. He does not go to the bishop. Disaster has struck his humble home. His uncle Juan, Bernardino, the only family he has left in the world, has collapsed with the coccolistly, the plague. It is a terrifying illness, a hemorrhagic fever that burns the victim from the inside out. Juan Diego spends the entire day, a night by his uncle's bedside, changing wet rags, holding his hand, and watching the life slowly drain from the old man's eyes. He forgets the bishop. He forgets the lady. His world shrinks down to the sound of his uncle's labored breathing. By the early hours of Tuesday, December 12th, the uncle knows the end is near. He grips Juan Diego's hand and whispers a final request. Go to. Tate Loco, find a priest. Bring him here to hear my confession before I die. Juan Diego nods. He wraps his tilma around his shoulders and runs out into the dark, freezing morning. He is desperate. He is running against time. As he approaches Tepeyac Hill, he realizes he has a problem. The path he usually takes goes right past the summit where the lady waits. If he stops to talk to her, if he gets delayed, his uncle might die without the sacraments. In his simple, frantic logic, he decides to trick the Virgin Mary. He veers off the main road. He scrambles over rocks and through a dry riverbed, taking a rough path around the eastern side of the hill, hoping to slip past her unnoticed. He keeps his head down, running hard, his sandals slapping against the stones. He thinks he has outsmarted heaven. But as he rounds the bend, he skids to a halt. She is not waiting at the top. She has come down the slope to intercept him. She blocks his path, standing amidst the sharp rocks, glowing softly in the pre-dawn light. Juanito, my little one, she asks, her voice filled with gentle amusement. Where are you going? What path is this? Juan Diego falls to his knees, ashamed and terrified. He stammers out his excuse. He tells her about the plague, the fever, the dying uncle. He tells her he has no time for signs or bishops, that he must prioritize the dead over the divine. Forgive me, my lady, he cries. I will return tomorrow, but today I must save my uncle. The Virgin looks at him with infinite tenderness. She does not scold him for his lack of faith. She does not get angry at his evasion. Instead, she speaks the words that have echoed through the hearts of the Mexican people for 500 years. Words that are now inscribed in stone above the entrance of the basilica. Listen, put it into your heart, my youngest son, that what frightened you, what afflicted you is nothing. Do not let your face be troubled. Do not fear this illness, nor any other illness or anguish. Am I not here? Who am your mother, are you not? Under my shadow and protection. Am I not your fountain of life? Are you not in the folds of my mantle, in the crossing of my arms? Is there anything else you need? She looks him in the eye and delivers the promise. Do not be afflicted by your uncle's disease. Rest assured, he is already healed. At that exact moment, miles away in the hut in Tepeyac, the fever breaks. Juan Bernardino sits up, takes a deep breath, and asks for food. On the hill, Juan Diego stops trembling. He believes her. The anxiety vanishes, replaced by a surge of calm resolve. He stands up, ready to face the bishop. Go to the top of the hill, she commands, pointing back up the slope. Cut the flowers you find. There. Put them in your tilma and bring them to me. Juan Diego obeys. He turns and begins the climb up the jagged slope of Tepeyac. He knows this hill intimately. He knows that in the dead of December, with the ground hard as iron and the frost biting at the roots, nothing grows. Here but spider webs, thorns, and dry scrub. It is a brown, desolate place, hostile to life. But as he crests the ridge, the air hits him. It is not the smell of dust or cold. It is the heavy, sweet perfume of a spring garden. He stops. The frozen rocky summit is alive with color. These aren't desert blooms. They are Castilian roses, flowers native to Spain, blooming in the wrong hemisphere in the dead of winter. They are perfect, glistening with dew. Juan Diego falls to his knees, gathering the impossible harvest into his tilma. The thorns don't scratch, the cold doesn't bite. He fills his cloak and runs back to the lady. Then comes the most tender moment of the story. The Virgin doesn't just send him away. She reaches out and rearranges the roses with her own hands, securing the bundle around his neck. "My little son," she commands. "This is the proof. Show this only to the bishop. You are my ambassador." Juan Diego heads for the city, clutching the warm bundle, unaware he is carrying the future of a continent. At the palace, the guards block his path again, sneering, but suddenly they freeze. They smell it. The scent of a cathedral inn. Full bloom is seeping through the dirty cactus cloth. Curious, they demand to see what he's hiding. Trapped, Juan Diego opens the folds just a fraction. When the servants see the fresh, blooming Castilian roses, their eyes go wide. Greed takes over. They reach out to grab the flowers, thinking to steal a few for themselves. But here, a minor miracle occurs, a prelude to the great one. 3 times different servants reach into the cloak to snatch a rose, and 3 times as their fingers touch the petals, the flowers seem to dissolve into the fabric. To their eyes, the roses suddenly look painted or embroidered or sewn into the cloth. They grasp at air, terrified and confused. They back away. They run to the bishop, telling him that the crazy Indian is back and he is carrying something supernatural. Hearing this, Bishop Zumarraga realizes the moment has come. He orders the doors to be opened. Juan Diego enters the study. The room is tense. The bishop sits in his heavy wooden chair, surrounded by his advisors and the interpreter. Juan Diego walks to the center of the room and kneels. He is exhausted, covered in the dust of the road, but his eyes are burning with triumph. "Monseigneur," he says, his voice steady, "I did what you ordered. I went to tell the lady, my mistress, that you asked for a sign so that you might believe me. She was gracious. She accepted your request. She sent me to the top of the hill to cut these flowers. I saw them. I touched them. She arranged them with her own hands. She said, bring them to the bishop. In them, he will see the sign he desires." Juan Diego stands up. He grips the 2 upper corners of his tilma, holding the heavy bundle tight against his chest. "Here is your sign," he whispers. He spreads his arms wide. The rough cloth falls open. A cascade of heavy, wet crimson roses tumbles out, crashing onto the stone floor. The room is instantly filled with the overwhelming perfume of a Spanish garden in full bloom. Juan Diego smiles, looking down at the pile of flowers, waiting for the bishop to be amazed by the roses. But the room has gone dead silent. He looks up. The bishop is not looking at the flowers. He is looking at Juan Diego's chest. Zumarraga's face has drained of color. His eyes are wide, filled with tears. Slowly, shakily, the bishop falls to his knees. Then the interpreter kneels. Then the arrogant servants, one by one, every person in the room drops to the floor in an act of total adoration. Juan Diego looks down at himself, confused. He looks at his empty cloak. There on the coarse, beige fibers of the agave cloth fibers that are too rough to paint on. Fibers that should be full of holes and stains is a perfect glowing image. It is the lady. She is exactly as he saw her on the hill. She is wearing a mantle of blue-green stars. She is surrounded by the rays of the sun. She is standing on the moon. She is looking down with an expression of infinite compassion. The flowers were just the envelope. This was the letter. Bishop Zumarraga weeps openly. He asks forgiveness for his lack of faith. He crawls forward on his knees, and with trembling hands he unties the knot of the cloak from behind Juan Diego's neck. He takes the tilma from the peasant's shoulders as if he is handling the Holy Eucharist. He carries it into his private chapel and places it on the altar. The war between two worlds ends in that room. The bridge has been built. The bishop spends the night in prayer before the image, and Juan Diego, the humble messenger, is finally treated as a guest of honor in the house of God. The miracle of the roses brought the bishop to his knees. But the image on the tilma, that was not a message for the Spanish. That was a letter written specifically to the Aztecs in the only language they trusted, the language of symbols. You have to understand that for the indigenous people of 1531, their world was visual. They didn't write with letters. They wrote with glyphs. When they looked at the tilma, they didn't see a painting. They saw a document. They read the image like a book. And what they read was a message so sophisticated, it dismantled their fears, without a single word being spoken. Let's decode the image exactly as an Aztec warrior would have read it 500 years ago. First, the posture. Her hands are joined in prayer. To the Spanish, this was standard piety. But to the Aztecs, this was shocking. In their theology, gods do not pray. Gods demand prayer. By pressing her hands together, she is telling them, I am not God, I am a messenger just like you. Second, the belt. She wears a black ribbon tied high above her waist. For the indigenous people, this was the center, the maternity belt. It signaled one thing. This woman is pregnant. She is a virgin, yet she is a mother. Third, the sun and moon. The Aztecs were the people of the sun. They sacrificed thousands of hearts to keep the sun alive. But look at the image. She is standing in front of the sun, eclipsing it. She is blocking its rays, showing she is more powerful than their strongest god. Yet she does not extinguish it. She is surrounded by it. And beneath her feet, she stands on a black crescent moon. In Nahuatl, Mexico means the novel of the moon. She is showing dominion over their land, but she is not crushing it. She is supported by it. Fourth, the flower, the most critical symbol, is barely visible. On her dress, over her womb, is a four-petaled flower called the nahi. To the Aztecs, this was the symbol of the center of the universe, the dwelling place of the supreme god. By placing this flower on her womb, the image screams a theological revolution. The true God is not in the sky demanding blood. He is here. He is growing inside me. The impact was instantaneous. In the decade following the apparition, 9 million Aztecs converted. It was the largest mass conversion in history. The image didn't just create a church, it created Mexico. But if the theology of the image is a masterpiece, the physics of the image is a ghost story, because the story doesn't end in 1531. In the modern age, the tilma has been subjected to a barrage of tests by chemists, NASA consultants, and Nobel laureates. And the more we study it, the more the laws of science seem to break down. The miracle of decay. The tilma is made of ayat, a rough fabric woven from cactus fibers. In the humid, salty air of Mexico City, this organic material rots within 20 years. It turns to dust. Yet this cloak is nearly 500 years old. For the first century, it hung without glass, exposed to incense, smoke, and the touch of millions of hands. It should be black with grime. It should be eaten by insects. Instead, the fibers are as strong and supple as the day they were woven. The acid test. In 1785, a worker was cleaning the frame with a 50% nitric acid solution strong enough to eat through metal. He spilled it directly onto the cloth. It should have burned a hole instantly. Instead, the fabric repaired itself, leaving only a faint watermark, the bomb. In 1921, an anti-clerical radical hid a stick of dynamite in a bouquet of flowers and placed it on the altar. The explosion destroyed the marble rail, blew out the windows, and twisted a heavy brass crucifix into a pretzel. But the image, the thin glass protecting it, didn't even crack. The shockwave bent brass, but it refused to touch the Virgin, the phantom paint. But the most chilling discovery came when scientists analyzed the pigments. In 1936, Nobel Prize winner Dr. Richard analyzed fibers from the image. His conclusion: the colors are not mineral, not vegetable, and not animal. They are not of this earth. Decades later, NASA consultant Dr. Philip Cerner Callahan scanned the image with infrared light. He found no underdrawing, no sketch, no sizing to prepare the rough canvas. To paint a portrait like this on raw cactus fiber is like trying to paint a masterpiece on a screen door. But, strangest of all, he found that the pigment does not soak into the fibers. In some places, the color floats 3/10 of a millimeter above the cloth. It is not a painting. It is a projection that got frozen in time. But as incredible as the floating paint and the indestructible canvas are, they are nothing compared to the final mystery, a mystery hidden in the eyes of the Virgin, waiting 500 years for the invention of the computer to be revealed. The final secret is so small that for centuries, no one knew it existed. It wasn't until 1979 when Dr. Jose S.D. Tonsman, a computer systems engineer, digitized high-resolution photographs of the Virgin's face that the truth was found. He magnified the iris of her eyes 2,500 times. What he found buried in the microscopic grain of the cornea shouldn't be there. It obeys the Perkins-Sanson law of optics, which dictates how human eyes reflect images. In the reflection of her eyes, there is a scene. It is not a painting of a scene. It is a distortion perfect reflection of what was in front of her the moment the image was formed. You can see a balding, bearded man, Bishop Zumarraga. You can see a man kneeling, Juan Diego. You can see a dark-skinned woman, a servant. You can see the interpreter, Juan Gonzalez. The eyes of the Virgin of Guadalupe are not painted. They are a photograph. They captured the exact millisecond the roses fell to the floor. On December 12th, 1531, they hold the reflection of the people in that room, frozen forever in a divine snapshot. And this brings us to the end of the mystery. We live in a skeptical age. We demand data. We demand proof. And perhaps that is why the Tilma exists. It is a miracle designed for the age of science. The more we analyze it with lasers, chemicals, and computers, the more it refuses to be explained away. It remains an indestructible object painted with light resting on a fabric that should be dust. But the true miracle isn't the preservation of the cactus fiber. The true miracle is the message. In a time of blood and fire, when two civilizations were tearing each other apart, the divine didn't appear to a general or a king or a high priest. She appeared to a 57-year-old farmer who thought he was a dead leaf. She spoke his language. She treated him with dignity. She used him to unite a broken world. Juan Diego, the humble messenger, died in 1548. But his Tilma remains waiting for you in Mexico City. It hangs there as a silent, enduring promise. A promise that no matter how dark the world gets, we are not alone. As she told Juan Diego on that rocky hill 500 years ago, am I not here? Who am your mother? Are you not in the crossing of my arms?